A brief review of Sir Howard's new publication, Obama and Other Poems. The last time I stood in a forum like this one, less than a year ago, it was to present a review of Sir Howard's book of poems entitled Behind God Back. Once again, he's demonstrated his commitment to the historical and literary record of Montserrat, its people, and the Montserratian worldview, by donating to us the product of his creative mind in his own distinctive and disciplined literary style. Obama and Other Poems is a varied and very witty collection of poems, thought-provoking, rich in metaphor and innuendo, and as usual, powerful in its precise, apt, and bold imagery and word painting. The poems are divided into 6 sections, enabling the reader to enjoy the author's creation through themes and inviting us to consider each poem as a contributing unit to the theme of the whole. In the first section, as you've heard, there are 7 poems which celebrate the election of Barack Obama as the first black president of the USA. The opening poem considers whether Obama's victory at the polls is, perhaps, the embodiment of Martin Luther King's dream. Various perspectives of the electorate are found in this section. Obama possibly as redeemer of America, as a president called by God and both appointed and anointed for these times. Obama as a black man who dared to break the glass ceiling, built by years of prejudice and the sugarcane economy and sustained by the Ku Klux Klan, to the concerns about the personal safety of this newfound savior, who, while not divine like Christ, hopefully will not be harmed. The final poems in this section recognize that Obama will have to fight detractors and distractors, even as he tries to prioritize the economic, social, and political demands and needs of the country and its citizens. The use of color contrast is rich here, particularly black and white, as you can imagine, with a touch of gray. And these accentuate the racial undertones in the US society and the impact of the Obama presidency, whether real or dreamed, because expectations were high. And the whole issue of race, not only in America, is highlighted, but also in Britain, where the idea of Downing Street experiencing its own Obama is now not such a far-fetched idea after all. The Tragedy of Haiti, those poems comprise the second section of this work, and these reflect on the whole issue of suffering through devastating tragedy, both national and personal, local and regional and international. So readers are reminded of the almost universal rejection of Haiti by the world, which seemingly turned a blind eye to the suffering of this land at the hand of her colonial master, France. And reflecting on the fact that it took an earthquake, a ravaging earthquake, to draw the attention of the world to this land and its people, which had really already been suffering for so long. And so while the collective conscience of the world was stirred by the natural disaster, the opportunities for doing good in symbolic gestures of aid were seized upon. The author still questions whether, despite all of this, Haiti will ever be truly embraced by the world. But the poems are not just about Haiti. The tragedy of the Chilean eruption is also compared to the Haitian tragedy, particularly in terms of death count and the crime wave. But the poet says comparison is useless. There is no victor when the headline fades. No one puts the other in the shades when the lights go out. So although goodwill has emerged in terms of external aid, the scope of the destruction, he's saying, requires a worldwide effort. Truly a conscience pricker. But Montserrat, he says, also has its own demons to fight, with dichotomies in the dangers of the volcano and its striking beauty. There's a poem that says, scientists know, but the poem says, they don't always know. And there is state-of-the-art equipment to help them know, but the technicians are perplexed. People are afraid of the volcano, but they enjoy the awesome pyrotechnics of the volcano, which is both deadly and breathtakingly beautiful. You understand the contrast? And this disaster theme is explored throughout in the actions of the volcano, likened to a bowel movement, which may be regular, or act as though constipated. The question is, which one is better? The vagaries of the weather are also explored in one of my favorite poems, Ash Christmas, which dramatically and humorously considers the well-known situation in Montserrat. I'm sure it only happens in Montserrat, where it will rain when you don't want it to, like during a calypso or soca show or the Queen show. But when you do need the rain, like after heavy ashfall, it's nowhere to be seen. Not one drop of rain will show up, the author says, to clean the vomit or flush the night soil of Soufriere. And the section, though, ends with hope. The 10 red roses in his garden, which bloom brightly and laugh in the face of acid rain, testimony to resilience. There's a section entitled Heroes, which provides evocative portraits of the contributions and persona of such varied persons as Nelson Mandela, Rex Nettleford, Millicent Moore, Mother Moore, Thomas Baker, Schooner, and a few other partially named or unnamed persons whose presence and idiosyncrasies make them notable within their communities. Recognition is also given to the worth of the upwardly mobile persons who have toiled and earned elevation to a higher standard of living, but who in turn, don't we know this, are hated and envied by those who they've left behind. St. George's School also finds its name heralded among the heroes, an institution whose teachers opened up a door of hope, letting us into a brighter world of the emancipated. And the meaning of progress also comes in for treatment in this heroes section. For example, I found it quite interesting, the availability of technology in a sort of conspicuous consumption. For example, the mode of transportation might be progress. Maids and cleaners are now called domestic engineers and are transported to work in luxury cars. The farmer can now ride to his ground by a motor vehicle, automatic, not manual, rather than by donkey. And the poet uses a really wonderful wordplay to examine whether this is indeed progress, where he observes that on getting to his ground by imported Japanese vehicle, the farmer automatically switches gear to dig and delve with handheld spades, foot power mattocks, or dated stock, picture perfect for the archives. High time, the poet concludes, to bring farming technology into the present century with user-friendly tools. So you get an idea of the scope, the span of the work. The theme of colonialism in its varying forms is one which recurs in Sir Howard's writing. And the fourth section is entitled Neo-Colonialism. We find 9 poems in this section in which he offers very provocative challenges to our collective consciousness. The threat to the functionality of our island, which can result from the neo-colonialism, which is so evident in Montserrat's relations with the economic master. Indeed, he feels the threat might already have been realized. Montserrat, he notes, sings out of tune, and the English cow still jogs over the moon. Even our weather and cultural manifestations seem to have been touched. December nights seem to be much colder than before. And St. Patrick's Day, he reflects, borrows more from our colonizers than from the martyrdom of our ancestors, whose quest for freedom is at the root of our St. Patrick's Day celebration. So the poet cries out for a brazen serpent who will attack colonialism without fear, and for a new ideology which frees our poisoned minds from clinging to outdated British cultural forces. I mentioned in another forum that this poem is a professing and unrepentant Christian. So it is almost expected that space will be found for poetry which explores the mystery of God, the concept of belief, and provides testimony to the power of God in the realities of mankind. Section 5, entitled I Believe, consists of 12 poems which provide perspectives on both the concepts of belief and unbelief. The poet holds up, for example, the tantalizing freedom of the atheist without the need to perform the rituals or work through the mysteries of faith in God, in all the confusing arrays of form and doctrine in which we have presented in denominations. But he recognizes that in the heat of daily battle, in times of desperation, and in the provision of miracles which transcend human rank, mortal strength is not enough. And he declares his belief in God. Not that this belief is an untroubled tenet. He admits to assailing doubts and loss of faith which plague the believers in times of trial. And he also looks at the scourge of hypocrisy and recognizes that belief comes at a cost. And the final section consists of 22 occasional poems on a wide variety of topics, including moods compared to the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes raging. The process of culling one's address book, this is so topical right now on Facebook, and the decisions about who's a friend and who's not a friend, who to include. The ever-present consciousness and influence of long ground, you're not going to escape that. The legal challenges to election decisions, and the new legal provisions on the rights of the child. Security features at US airports, which can literally see right through you, compromising your private business. The Monstraction tendency for being late, and the overabundance of mangoes, which create a mess on our landscape. And there are also a few poems which treat with the concept of death, reflections on death as a leveler, both the famed and the infamous, the known and the unknown face death. And there are personal reflections as well in this section, very personal reflections. This is a most enjoyable collection of poems, rich in the variation and use of color, tone, rhythm, pace for which Sir Howard is famous. He has a practiced and skillfully crafted style of writing. And in both the descriptiveness and the economy of his language, we experience the strength and diverseness of his feelings, the depth of his convictions, and the fervency of his hopes. Ladies and gentlemen, I really do recommend this book to you. I have read it, and it is one which is well worth reading over and over again.